And from our studios here in Accra, welcome to Joy News Prime with me, Blessed Sugam. Our top stories this hour: Majority Leader Osei Chairman Sabunso on a warpath with Speaker Alban Bagbin as Parliament takes a break to rethink national development with the Church of Pentecost. Majority Leader warns the House may be setting a bad precedent, but Speaker Bagbin has a defense.
What is happening is a national event being hosted by the Church of Pentecost.
We'll get into the details shortly. The battle lines drawn for the New Patriotic Party's Super Delegates Congress as the Elections Committee concludes holding and balloting with 10 aspirants. Kennedy Ejapon speaking the number one spot as Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia can now campaign with the Asieho cliche at he is taking the number 10 spot. We have the details for you, and lawyers for Asin North Member of Parliament James Jachikwesin say he is not getting a fair trial as his latest push to put the trial on hold fails again. The Attorney General's office disagrees and has vowed to go to any length and to scale any legal hurdle set in motion to delay this case. And tonight, the Majority Leader Osei Chairman Sabunso is on a warpath with Speaker Alban Bagbin, arguing that the veteran lawmaker may be leading Parliament to set a bad precedent over his decision to suspend sitting Wednesday due to an event hosted by the Church of Pentecost. The National Development Forum being hosted by the churches to discuss national issues with the likes of former Presidents John Ajay Kufuor and John Dramani Mahama, as well as the Speaker himself taking his turn to address the gathering today. Although the Speaker says that the National Development Dialogue being organized by the Church of Pentecost is an important duty that warrants the House to suspend sitting, Osei Chairman Sabunso disagrees. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante has details of what transpired earlier in the House today.
It was rare that the Speaker of Parliament would direct that Parliament should not sit due to this event. Some MPs were startled, and the Majority Leader voiced his concerns.
We must endeavor to participate in that national event. And my little worry is, I'm not sure there is a formal communication to this House with respect to this. And I thought that if there's no formal communication, if we're not careful, we may be setting some precedent that will be difficult to follow. Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect, if there is...
Majority Leader, there's formal communication. There's formal communication. Yes, there's formal communication. Communication to the House is through the Speaker. You know it, by the standing orders.
I belong to the Assemblies of God Church, a Pentecostal church, and I'm proud to belong to the Assemblies of God Church. If something is happening within the Christendom and we are formally communicated to, I think we should positively respond, except that this time around, the Speaker are telling us that we have a formal communication to you. I've been away for some time. I don't know whether in my absence that communication has been given to this House. I'm just saying that we should be a bit careful so that tomorrow, if another denomination also comes notifying you, we don't create a bad precedent. Other than that, Mr. Speaker, I have no fixation on that. I think that the appropriate thing must be done. That's all that I was responding to. So it's not about a matter of just because it's coming to from the Speaker here. No, with the greatest respect. I'm just talking about the propriety of the communication and so on. That's all that I said. But if we have to respond, the Speaker, if we have to respond as a House to it, I am minded to attend. I'm just looking at the communication, what is involved, and whether we are doing the proper thing. That's it. And whether Parliament should, on account of that, not sit tomorrow. That's the issue that I'm raising.
Honorable Majority Leader, the unavailability of your good self at the time I informed the House is what is misleading you. Because the importance of the event was hammered home by me. Yes, at the time I informed the House, I even mentioned the other dignitaries, the Chief Justice, the President, everybody, and the House is also invited. And so it's not just Speaker or leaders. I also call on members to take notice of it and to participate in the proceedings. So I have done that, it's just that you were not present.
Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin insists this was a national event that Parliament had to honor.
What is happening is a national event being hosted by the Church of Pentecost. It's a whole Christendom, together with government, that have decided to hold this national forum. The Pentecost Church has a very large facility to host the participants. Participants are, I'm told, over 4,000, but they have a very good facility in the eastern region where the people will be hosted for more than 2 days. And so it's not just the Pentecost Church that is organizing the event. It's a national event being hosted by them because they have the right environment to do so. And so we should take it serious, and I expect that participation will be well attended.
Due to this inability of Parliament to sit, a number of questions standing in the name of MPs, bills and papers will all now be deferred to another day. Kweku Asante for Joy News, Parliament House, Accra.
Well, my colleague Kweku there with excerpts of what transpired earlier today. Meanwhile, Speaker of the House later at the Pentecost Convention Center in the Central Region justified why the national dialogue organized by the Church of Pentecost is indeed warranting this decision to suspend sitting. I want to bring in now my colleague Carlos Kaloni, who was at the National Development Dialogue, joining us via Zoom now. Carlos, let's get to it. The majority leader obviously not happy with the suspension of sitting today, but are we getting a sense of why the Speaker decided to suspend sittings today?
Now, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, believes that the National Development Conference is actually an important national event that will help shape the country's morals for national development, that everyone, including the church, must work together with governments to achieve that one objective, clearly justifying the suspension of today's sitting in Parliament. We cannot take a listen to what he has been saying at the conference.
One would have thought such a conference would have been spearheaded by a think tank. But here we are gathered at the instance of the church. And truly, I have no doubt in my mind that the day of Pentecost has come. This conference reinforces the position that a nation's development cannot be the sole responsibility of the government. We all need to work together on that, particularly the state and the church. And note, there's a vast difference between the state and the government. The Church of Pentecost has, for the past years, proven its commitment to this understanding. We can only wish God's blessings for the efforts of the church.
Okay, so that's the justification from the Speaker of the House. The minority leader is a leading member of Parliament, and in spite of his concerns, we're getting that understanding that some MPs were also present just to support the Speaker's call. What more are we learning about this conference?
President, I actually saw the majority leader himself, also Chairman Sambonsu, as well as John in terms for Joe, who is the MP for Asen South, among other MPs. Also, my text from the organizers of the conference, which is the Pentecost Church, showed that there were about 100 MPs at the event. And the MPs I spoke to at the conference vehemently disagreed with the majority leader's opinion. To them, this was an important national event that will go a long way to help shape their conscience and to help them provide quality leadership and make good decisions for the people they lead in Parliament. So we can take a listen to what they've been telling me.
Well, I think I've seen about 100 members of Parliament here, and this is an excellent program. I think this is far more important than the business that we were going to do today. You see, members of Parliament are representatives of the people, and at the end of the day, whatever we are discussing there, if it is not influenced by a certain kind of virtue, and it's not moved by a passion to do things in the interest of the people, then whatever we do there may not inure to the benefit of the people. And so gathering and motivating ourselves, and as it were reminding ourselves of the importance of upholding the moral values, the integrity that is required of us as representatives of the people, for me, it's a priceless thing, and nobody should downplay the importance of such an event.
I think I agree with the Speaker of Parliament when yesterday he declared that there will be no sitting today because of this important program. People are showering praises on the Church of Pentecost for initiating such a dialogue. And when you consider the theme, moral vision and national development, it literally means it's a national event. So the Speaker is not wrong by suspending sitting today to make sure that every member of Parliament makes way to Gomuafete to be part of the discussion.
If there's anything that was to hold on for this event to take place, it is worth it, because including Parliament, if Parliament has suspended for about 4 hours just to give way for this to happen, that is what we need. Because all the bills that we are passing, they're important, but to what end? We pass all the bills, and we always say that we have all the laws in this country, but the problem is implementation, the problem is with institutions, the problem is with the human beings, it's with society, both leaders and the citizenry. We all have a role to play.
Well, let's bring in Samuel Obey, who's the Executive Director for Parliamentary Network Africa. Some MPs there obviously justifying why the House would have to suspend sittings for a national dialogue. But there's the issue about the standing orders of the House and what ground rules it establishes when it comes to suspending sittings. Do we know clearly if the Speaker has violated that or otherwise?
Well, Blessed, we cannot say that, any rules of the House have been violated by not allowing the sittings of today to happen. The standing orders of Parliament requires that during a meeting of Parliament, and a meeting of Parliament is defined as when the House resumes from its recess until the next recess. During a meeting of Parliament, Parliament sits or shall sit on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So these 4 days of the week are for mandatory sittings, of Parliament. And the expectation is that if for any reason, the House is unable to sit on any of these days, there would be just a communication to that effect. We know that the House usually would have on every Friday what is known as the business statement, which indicates what issues the House will be dealing with in the coming week. And which would give an indication of such suspensions of the sittings of the House if that is envisaged. I have not taken a look at the business statement from last week to see if there was any indication in the business statement that Parliament was not going to sit today, Wednesday. But it's not unusual that Parliament would not sit on a particular day because there is a national event happening. We know that, on days where there are specific national activities taking place, including the recently held tree planting exercise and what have you, which requires the full participation of members of Parliament. Usually the House is suspended, except that it was surprising that the leader of the House, the leader of government business, who is referred to as the leader of the House, the majority leader, would raise concerns on the floor of the House, because one would have expected that for such a major decision to be taken by Parliament, it would have had a unanimous consensus at the level of leadership, which certainly one cannot do without the majority leader. So this coming from the majority leader was quite curious.
Okay, but let's look at the reasons he's bringing up. Obviously, looking at the concerns that the majority leader is raising, his point is that we may be opening the floodgates for all other religions and denominations to also demand the attendance of Parliament, right?
Well, the leader made some legitimate points, and that's why I'm saying that it is my expectation that these points would have been made in conclave, when the leadership met to probably discuss these matters. So for him not to be aware and for it to come up on the floor of Parliament means that there may have been some communication, gap somewhere, and that was not very good for the optics, and that's not to say we are blaming the majority leader for raising it. Of course, if he had reason and he wanted to put it on record, it was important for him to have brought it up. But I am saying that for such a major decision of Parliament to be taken, the practice is that there would have been some consensus at the level of leadership to say that we're not meeting on this day, and this is the reason why we are not meeting. So everybody is behind, that particular decision. And then you will not have the leader of the House standing on his feet while sitting is going on to kind of challenge the speaker, on that decision.
I see, but this is also opening up the general conversation about business in the House of late. It appears that serious work, quote unquote, is not being taking place within the chambers. In the last few days, we were having in mind what the minority decided to do with the James Chachi Kwesing. Then some majority MPs also decided to absent themselves to support Dr. Bawumia Bawumia during the filing of his nomination. The latest to join that is the Speaker. Are you concerned as the Parliamentary Network Africa?
Well, it's becoming almost clear that this ongoing sitting of Parliament, which started in the early days of June and is likely to end in the early days of August, may, and we say, I use may because we would want the meeting of Parliament to end for us to check our records, but may go down in history as one of the very unproductive meetings of this Parliament. Considering that, so many things have not happened. So many of the sittings have been interrupted for various reasons. Members of Parliament have been absent, both on the majority and minority side, for very interesting reasons. And it doesn't look like a lot of serious business has taken place. Yes, the House during this meeting has passed some critical legislation, including the recently passed bill to take away the death penalty, a very big win for human rights and a good one at that. But there is so much that this current meeting of Parliament could have achieved that it has not achieved. And for us, it is worth looking into what this current meeting of Parliament, June to August, would have done by the time that Parliament goes on recess, and compare it to similar periods in the past, because I'm quite confident in my mind that this period has been one of the most unproductive parliamentary periods, at least from recent history, since I particularly started following, the work of Parliament about a decade ago, from the nature of the work that I do. And that's quite worrying. And let me just end it by saying, Blessed, that I fear that the final days leading to the Parliament going on recess may then have so much workload, and then Parliament will be trying to use just a few days to finish up with all the work that we couldn't do.
Grateful for your time. That's Samir Bing, his Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa. In a related development, former President John Dramani Mahama is also unhappy about the fact that society tends to worship individuals with questionable wealth. He was speaking at the same National Development Conference Wednesday.
What happened to our value of being each other's keeper, each his brother's keeper, where communal assistance to each other on our farms and in other tasks that we had to undertake were easily available? What happened to our abhorrence of greed and theft? Why do we celebrate persons who today are wealthy with dubious sources of income, and yet society is not concerned about what the source of income is, and it's only about the person's wealth? Ladies and gentlemen, ethics have a direct impact on national development. And as a student of history, I can say unequivocally that in history, all civilizations that have fallen have done so after they lost their moral and ethical compass. It is our prayer that Ghana continues to maintain its moral compass in order that we can continue to ensure national development, prosperity, and dignity for our people.
And also present was the former President John Agyekunkufor, who's unhappy with the insults and personal attacks in the political space.
And we are all here to consider how we deliberate on the development of our nation using moral vision. And as I've said, you don't talk morality without talking humanity. So Pentecostal Church has done well in organizing this huge meeting, and I'm sure the meeting is also being relayed across the nation. I wish you success. So over the next 2 or 3 days of the forum, you come up with ways and means to enable the people generally to contribute to find the way forward towards developing our nation without the biases and, if you like, the unkindness that we tend to display to each other, even as we try to develop our country.
Well, let's take you to the courts now. Lawyers for Sim North MP James Jachi Koisin say he's not getting a fair trial. This is their reaction to the latest setback, the failure to halt the trial yet again. They had urged the court to refer an aspect of the case to the Supreme Court for interpretation. The court, however, disagreed and dismissed this request, leaving the lawyers with no choice but to question the state of affairs. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable has the latest.
Mr. Kwesi's legal team, represented by Justin Teriwaja, told the court the ongoing day-to-day schedule of proceedings in view of his role as a legislator means he's not getting reasonable time for his trial. He also pointed out that the prosecution had failed to furnish them with a full complement of documents to be used in a trial. Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame disagreed and urged the court to dismiss the case. He explained that the said constitutional provision on reasonable trial time was unambiguous and did not require any referral for interpretation. He explained to the court that lawyers for the legislator were rather placing an absurd meaning on a clear provision. The court, presided over by Justice Mary Yanzu, ruled that a case meriting referral to the Supreme Court had not been made. Mr. Kwesi's legal team say he's not getting a fair trial.
What I can tell you is that he's satisfied with the work of his lawyers. He knows that his lawyers are doing all that they can to give him representation which is of qualitative effect. So as for what the judges do, we'll leave it to the judges and we'll leave it to the good people of this country to look at. But I can tell you that he's more than satisfied with the work of his lawyers.
I mean, at the core of the application has been the issue of a fair trial. Does he believe he's getting a fair trial?
He doesn't believe that at all. He thinks that his hands are being tied at the back and thrown into a boxing ring. He thinks that when disclosures have not been fully made, the trial cannot proceed. So for the court to think that half disclosure is enough for him to continue with his trial smacks of tying somebody's hand and throwing him into the boxing ring.
The Attorney General's office disagrees.
We disagree with them. We are in a court of law. They filed various processes. You can count. All the applications that they filed, they've lost. Why? Because they were not in court to talk law, but it talks sentiments. And we must also take it that the court is not meant for sophistry. You may want to put up all the intelligent and nice, whatever, but you must stick to the law. And that's what we've been doing. Today, as they may be happy that we've adjourned the matter, Friday will be in court. Whatever step that they take, the state is ready to follow them. We are always a step ahead of them because today you saw what happened. They wanted an adjournment because they didn't want to move the motion, but he said, fine, we are ready with the law, but even not the facts. We stuck with the law and we got the results.
The case is back at the High Court on July 28, but Mr. Kwesi's legal team will be at the Supreme Court on Thursday in a fresh push to halt proceedings.
And we'll get you updates as and when we have it. 3 soldiers of the Headquarters Central Command of the Ghana Armed Forces in Kumasi and 3 others are standing trial for conspiring to rob a bullion van that belongs to a mining company in the Ahafo region. The 6 allegedly planned to attack and rob the bullion van built to transport gold for the Golden Team mining company in the Ahafo Shidia area of the Ahafo region. Police arrested a driver of the company, Ura Oseyenchi, and is investigating the matter, and other issues led to 5 others, including the military men, being arrested. Love FM's Erastus Asari Donko was in court and now reports.
So in all, 6 men were arraigned before the Atasemanso Circuit Court behind me today. They include 3 civilians, Ura Oseyenchi, who is the driver of the mining company, Makata David Ayaba, and then it also includes 3 military personnel of the Headquarters Central Command of the Ghana Armed Forces in Kumasi. They are WO2 Emmanuel Yate, WO1 Linus Edem, and WO1 Francis Katamani. Now, they are accused of conspiring to attack and rob a bullion van belonging to Golden Team Mining Company Limited in Ahafo Shidim in the Ahafo region. And they were arrested about 11 days ago and has since been in custody. Today, when they met in court, the prosecution prayed that the court will grant them warrants so that they can take care of the phones of these 6 people to be able to process them in the forensic labs to support their case in court. That was granted. They were also, after pleas by the lawyers for the 6, granted bail in the sum of 100,000 Ghana cedis with landed properties, sureties, each to be justified. That has also been granted by the court. So proceedings have been adjourned to the 21st of August this year. But we have been speaking with lawyer Evans Amankwa, who has been watching brief for the complainant.
We are satisfied with the bail conditions. 3 sureties ought to be justified with landed properties. Yes, it's enough to make sure that the accused persons comes to court looking at the grievousness of the offense that they have committed. It is an allegation. They were going to attack the bullion van that takes the gold of Golden Team Mining Resources Company Limited. There are 3 military personnel amongst them. It's unfortunate because looking at the situation in this country now and the rate at which people in uniform also get associated with it, we need to be very careful about those things so that the citizenry will not lose confidence in people in uniform.
Let's bring you back to the national capital, Accra, where we're getting some updates on an event scheduled to happen tomorrow, where a coalition of environmental protection groups will begin a 2-day protest here in Accra to demand for the scrapping of a new law which allows the president to grant permits for mining in Ghana's forest reserves. Thursday's demonstration will take place at the forecourt of Parliament House and the Minerals Commission office. Environmental group Erocha Ghana, which is spearheading the protest, says that the legal instrument, which is the Environmental Protection and Regulations Bill, now turned into law, poses a serious danger to the protection of Ghana's green reserves. Let's bring in Awolasawa, who's the National Coordinator for the Eco-Conscious Citizens. Thank you, Awola, for spending some time with us. At the last check, the leadership of the group was at the police command just to get clearance for tomorrow's exercise. Do we know if you have the green light from the Ghana Police Service for tomorrow's demonstration?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Unfortunately, we haven't got the green light. As you know, the law requires us to notify the police 5 days before, which has been done. Unfortunately, due to security concerns, we haven't got the green light. But that notwithstanding, we are still going to continue raising awareness about LI 2462, which is bad news. It's extremely bad news. You will recall that we didn't take part in greening Ghana because we said, let's green Ghana for real. You cannot purport to be greening Ghana. At the same time, LI 2462 was passed in November, a very bad law, which allows virtually unfettered access to our forest reserves. Even in globally significant biodiversity areas, you can mine there with the approval of the president in writing if he believes it's in the national interest. And we don't think it could ever be in the national interest to mine in globally significant biodiversity areas. So the law, we believe, is an extremely bad one. We need to raise awareness about it, and allowing unfettered access to forest reserves is just extraordinary. Who does that?
We'll talk about the LI shortly, but just a brief update on what it is that the police service has been indicating to you, because you've held meetings with them. On what grounds are they withdrawing their men for tomorrow's exercise?
Well, to be fair, they are not withdrawing anything. What it is that you need to notify them. They've been notified, and they have talked about security concerns, which will not make it possible for us to be able to demonstrate tomorrow and Friday. The plan was to picket at Parliament House tomorrow, Thursday, and then Friday, Minerals Commission, to urge the Minerals Commission to, for heaven's sake, stop issuing mining licenses in forest reserves. We have so many community like our brothers at Seshua Tronsu, who are against the community mining because they know that issuing these licenses will pollute their waters. And as we speak, so many licenses are being issued in forest reserves, especially since the passage of LI 2462. Unfortunately, the police have not given the go-ahead. We are law-abiding citizens, and therefore we will have this demonstration, but we'll work with the police. We are still meeting with them tomorrow, and as soon as we have the green light, we would inform all concerned, and it will go ahead. But in the meantime, we are urging all citizens to take note of LI 2462 and join the fight to have it repealed or rescinded. It's a very, very bad law.
And we'll be looking forward to that meeting and updating our viewers on that. Awolasewa, thank you for spending some time with us here on Joy News Prime. And we're taking a little breather here, but still ahead, we're talking about the internal race of the New Patriotic Party. We'll tell you what's the latest. Okay, so let's look at some of the developments in the West Africa sub-region, because reports say that presidential guards in Niger have seized President Mohamed Bazoum and located his residence, as well as their key ministries. The BBC is reporting that despite fears of a coup, an attempt is underway in Niger to resolve the issues. No shots have been fired as of now, but we can get more from Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar, who's the Executive Director for the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. What reports are you getting from your networks in Niger, and how dangerous could this be in terms of implication for the West Africa sub-region? Too many coup d'etats, is it?
Sure. This is, another sad development and another feature undermining the promise and sustenance of democracy in West Africa. But of course, at the moment, these are developing situations that we're looking at. And so we've had, the presidential palace blockaded by the inner military of the president. And there are several efforts underway in terms of trying to negotiate with these military officers. There's a stalemate. We're not sure yet what the outcome would be, but it doesn't look promising yet at the moment. But what it means is that there are several things at play. If this succeeds, that's a further blow to efforts in terms of democratizing and sustaining, democracy in West Africa. Of course, we're already hearing and seeing statements from regional blocs, including ECOWAS, condemning what has happened and talking tough in terms of President Tinubu, that this is not acceptable, this will not be accepted. And we're seeing other international actors issuing statements along similar lines. But my point is that we seem to care more about the incidents of coups than the drivers and the underpinnings that lead these situations to happen. If we were able to set up systems and mechanisms to address the challenges and the drivers, the factors that lead us to situations like this, we would not be having these huge numbers of coup
and I'm glad that you're raising this point, because many fear that Niger is simply mirroring what happened in neighboring Mali.
Exactly so. And we are seeing the feature of the ineffectiveness and incapacity otherwise of leadership at play here. We seem, to overlook the fact that leadership has a huge responsibility in terms of how do we build systems that takes care of the aspirations and needs of the people. If we look at all the 4 or 5, even 5 coups that have happened in the last 3 years, this follow a consistent pattern of failure of leadership and systems to sustain democracy. And we seem to care less about the factors and the drivers that lead us to these places than we care about the fact that a coup has happened. And we talk tough, we issue sanctions and other biting measures against leaders, which in effect, often doesn't have any huge effect on the leadership in those spaces. So it's about time we looked at, measures and systems that can take care of vulnerabilities and the drivers that lead to this place. I've always argued that if you focus too much on, the exercise of power, and the fact that leaders care a lot about the power that they exercise and how this power is used for their interests, for individuals, and not the people. And leadership, it doesn't really matter what kind of leadership we have. It doesn't matter what kind of democratic credentials that we have. Whether we organize elections every 4 years, every 5 years, democracy would fail if leadership fails to focus on people rather than on power.
And I'm very much concerned about Ghana, the possible effects on us, knowing that the president is also confirming that the incident in Burkina Faso is also likely to have some impact on our border security.
It already has had impact on us, and we're continuing to suffer from the effects of these things that are happening regionally. Demographics in terms of population dynamics, it's changing because we're seeing influx of people who are fleeing, the threats from all these other countries that are happening. It is impacting on trade, it's impacting on investment. And so these are very, very big things that are happening. And individuals who are vulnerable in these spaces, even in Ghana, incidents like that could embolden people who have similar aspirations or similar goals. And so it's important that we do not lose sight of the fact that these things have huge impact on us. And it's a big lesson for us. We tend to glory, feel great, feel happy that Ghana is a stable country. Ghana has huge credentials when it comes to democracy in West Africa. But we fail to see the deteriorating quality of our governance, of leadership, and the capacity to provide what I call the entitlements of citizenship. And this is a big thing that we all must learn for.
I'm grateful. I'm Mukhtar Momoni Mukhtar, Executive Director for the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. There's also an easy calm, but we know that calm has indeed returned to that area. I'm talking about the Wa Technical Institute in the Wa municipality of the Upper West region, after a final year student was alleged to have assaulted a housemaster, injuring him on the right eye. We understand the situation is resolved now. Of course, Rafiq Salam has been there and is now reporting on the situation.
Wa Technical Institute, one of few second cycle institutions in the Upper West region that usually hawk headlines for the wrong reasons. There at it again. A final year student of the institute, Yusuf Mudassir, is alleged to have assaulted housemaster of the Bala House, Ismail Musa Furko, injuring him on the right eye.
They approached him and then asked him to go and change and be like a normal student. That was all that transpired. And he agreed to go in and change. After entering the yard, he was resistant to to do what I asked him to do. So I just held the shirt and asked him to hurry and don't waste my time here. And all that came from his mouth was, Master, what do I do? I don't like it. I said, what did I do? I only asked you to go and change the improper and wear your uniform. That's all. Then we're walking on the pavement blocks. Then he went down the unpaved floor. I never knew that was his intention. So all that I could realize was he just bent down and got up and once and used a stone and hit me.
How did you feel when he hit you?
I feel pain, and blood was oozing from my right ear and my nose too. The blood was also coming from my nose. So that was how we picked him from that place and sent him to the master in charge of discipline.
So this student, have you forgiven him?
Actually, why not? I'll claim him to go.
So you don't want anything to happen to him?
Oh, no. Nothing actually.
Principal of the college, Saka Adams, disclosed that his alleged accomplice and bosom friend was also arrested for allegedly using a pair of scissors to injure a colleague student. The duo are currently sick at the Ward police cells pending investigations, while the housemaster was also treated and discharged at the hospital.
So when that happened, that particular student have got a very close friend who was also in the dormitory. So when you saw that, he also wanted to run. The students wanted to grab him. Not knowing he was having a scissors in the pocket, he removed it and took one of the students to hand. So we have to pick that student to the police station. As we speak currently, the students are at the police custody and they are going through investigation.
And now the battle lines have been drawn for the Superdelegates Congress in the flag bearership race of the governing New Patriotic Party. This was after the Elections Committee engaged the aggrieved 9 aspirants today over 3 hours to resolve their demand for election modalities. The balloting was initially scheduled for Monday, but rescheduled to Wednesday due to lack of a consensus between the Elections Committee of the New Patriotic Party and the 9 aspirants. Samuel Umbura was at the party headquarters and has details in this report.
It will be conducted by the Elections Commission, and it will be free and fair for all the aspirants.
We had our engagement and we deliberated on few matters that were of concern. We were able to build consensus on the nagging issues and incorporated same in the guidelines. We've agreed that the Electoral Commission is going to take charge of the elections. We also agreed to ensure that the list of delegates, the album in this case, will also be furnished the aspirants. Now, let me inform you the order that the aspirants will appear on the ballot papers. Ken Ohine Japan, number 1. Alan John Kojo Chermantin, number 2. Joe Gate, number 3. Kwejo Poku, number 4. Dr. Owusu Afriya Koto, number 5. Kwabna Ajay Ejapon, number 6. Francis Adainimo, number 7. Dr. Kofi Konedu Apreku, number 8. Boachi Chamantin Ejako, number 9. His Excellency Dr. Mahamadou Baumia, number 10.
And time now for Showbiz. Becky is here. Hello, Becky.
Hello to you.
White, what's the essence behind this?
I am blessed. I am looking fantastic. Does it look good?
It looks really amazing.
Thank you. So let's talk about Ohima Mercy. Ohima Mercy has been in the news. Yes. She made a statement, I think yesterday on Joy Prime, talking about how she felt fulfilled having her ex-husband attend her Tahila launch, the 10th edition.
She's divorced?
Well, so this is sort of like a confirmation. We had rumors 2 years ago talking about, well, they've divorced, but she hasn't really come out to say that she's divorced. But with this She's literally confirming that she is fulfilled that her ex-husband had to, pass through the 10th edition of Tehila Experience.
Man, that you said yes. I it was taken by storm. I mean, everybody was surprised. 10 years, and this is happening. People are wondering. What do you?
For me, it was actually a surprise to me as well, because my firstborn was actually given a tax. I'm actually pushing him into the ministerial tax. Okay. So I gave him a tax, and then he actually went to the father to ask him about what he should do. And then the father came with him. And for me, celebrating 10 years, he's been one of the instruments that God has used for over 7 years, and actually recognizing his input into what he has done was actually worth it.
So you didn't know he was coming there?
No, I didn't know he was actually
a surprise. And he was wearing a T-shirt as well.
Of course, when he was coming there, he took one of the T-shirts from the son and was wearing it. And
so that was
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the good thing is that I had a conversation with the ex-husband now, and he's been telling us all about his experience with Tehila Experience.
What do you make of the whole journey and till today?
It's very refreshing and reflecting on how it all started. It just come to me as a joy and an excitement to see the 10 years of, if it's a human being, this is the 10th year of a baby that was born 10 years ago, and it's exciting to see it grow to this extent. It is God's altar. It's not for any human being, it's God's altar. And for some of us, it's been a privilege to have been there for the inception of this great vision. I believe that it has a journey it's embarking on, and at every step of the journey, God has something new to do. And we're expecting that on the 10th year, God is about starting something new. And I believe it's going to show in all the preparation and on the night of the experience. I'm expectant of what God is about to do. You can't predict what God will do, but what I believe is that, and what I believe in is what I've seen happening over the years with Tehila. Testimonies, breakthroughs coming forth, had my own testimonies over the years, and I believe that this year is not going to be different, but it's going to be more, especially when we are going to converge in one auditorium in that numbers and sing like the angels are doing in heaven. We're going to have that experience, the heavenly experience.
Yeah, but the experience is on.
Yeah, Isaac Chum performed there. But nearly 30 years after his 1996 death, rapper Tupac is still setting records. On Monday, Sotheby's New York said a piece of jewelry once owned by the California Love rapper sold for over $1 million. The gold, ruby, and diamond crown ring became the most valuable hip-hop piece ever sold at an auction. That's according to the auction house. The ring sold for an unprecedented $1 million after a bidding war, more than triple this $300,000 estimate. Tupac designed and commissioned the ring in 1996, and he wore it during his final public appearance at the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards. Pac and Dada 1996 is engraved on the band, a nod to his relationship with former Bo Kida Jones, the daughter of music producer Quincy Jones, and the late actress Peggy Lipton. So that will be all for the news this evening.
Yeah, and whatever you do it so well, so you could sell, you know, your relics.
Yeah, your ring after.
And then it could go as high as $1 million US.
What are you selling? Yeah,
okay.
Maybe.
We'll talk about that later. But that's all we have for you in this package. I'm Lester Sogan. Log on to myjoyonline.com. And thanks to Becky for joining us. Thanks to you as well for doing the watching. Thanks. for your time.